Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Finance for Monday, May 19th, 2025 to order. First item on the agenda is public forum. Anybody wishing to address the Board of Finance in public forum? Seeing none. Item number 2, approved minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes, catching up a little bit from last month. So 2.1, regular meeting minutes of March 17th, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, comments, edits? I don't believe I had any on this one. Anybody else? Okay. Yep.
Actually,
Go ahead.
on page 6, section 8,
Uh-huh.
we were talking about the audit for the next upcoming year.
Yeah.
And the second paragraph says, Mr. Beatty said after further discussion, the committee felt awarding, I think we should add the audit contract to CBIZ would be the appropriate recommendation. And then in the last sentence, in addition, CLA has been in town for a number of years, and it might be a good time to get a fresh set of eyes for the annual audit. So I'd just like to add that on there.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 2.2, special meeting minutes of April 17th. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any comments or corrections or edits? Again, I didn't see anything on my end.
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention.
Okay. Jonathan and Veronica, right? And Amy?
These are March 17th, right?
These are, no,
April
no,
17th.
April 17th.
Oh, no.
We did March already.
Okay, no.
You were part of that
April
one.
17th, if you
Yeah,
don't
all
want
right,
to
I'm
abstain.
confused.
It's okay, it was early in the morning.
The special meeting in
It
April
was the special-
17th.
It was
I
the
was
mill,
there.
it was the mill
Yeah,
rate.
we
It's at the mill rate.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So yes, Amy and Jonathan. And 2.3, regular meeting minutes of April 21st. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments or corrections? I believe I might have had one on this.
I had one on page 5.
Go ahead, Amy.
Section 6, the second paragraph, or I guess it's the second sentence. The Board of Selectmen instead of the Board of Selectmen.
I'm sorry, what page?
Page
Page
5.
5, section 6.
Section 6. Tiny change.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
On the preceding page, page 4, I guess.
Yeah.
Section 5 under medical. About halfway through that paragraph, it says there is not quite 2.5 months of funding left. I think we should just say in the fund balance.
Instead of Facebook.
Just in case.
Yeah, instead of
Yeah.
Facebook. If only. If high claim numbers continue, we could use up the fund balance this year. I just add the word the.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fund balance is, assuming you know it's talking about the medical
Right.
fund balance, yeah.
We could make that clarification as well.
Yeah, I think medical fund balance on both of those, just to be clear.
Yep.
Which one? Okay. Evidently, I didn't have any comments on this, so if there's any more?
Nope, that's all I have.
Otherwise, okay. Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Excellent. Moving on to item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. Okay, so we have the April 1st regular meeting minutes of the standing building committee. I believe their meeting was probably later, so we weren't able to get the minutes for May yet. I do want to address the fact that last month we had some questions about 595. And when I reread the notes and I realized that this meeting was not going to be on Zoom, I had a conversation with David DeMeo, the chairman. I talked to him, and actually I read to him what the meeting minutes said from last month regarding 595, and basically the amount of changes and things that were coming forward. I think the Board of Selectmen at the April meeting had some concerns about certain things. One of them at one point was furniture that was being ordered. Another one was the HVAC. Another one was, the one that came up last month was the security. Matt, just so you know, I had the conversation with David and we reiterated, or he agreed, that we should probably have a meeting scheduled to be able to go through those. My recommendation to him was that we probably pick or have a core group part of that. And again, I'm just saying this to the entire board for, feedback. Possibly have the chairs of the Board of Selectmen, Finance, and Ed involved, Cliff Gurnham, the chairman of Standing Building Committee, and possibly, I think it would probably be a good idea to have the design team or the architect who is part of it, because there's feedback that they received that might actually be able to answer some of those questions as the design team, the lead on the design team. And then whenever we pick that date and time, we invite all the boards, whoever wants to join in on that, whether it's in person or virtually. There have been a lot of, it's been a unique project. And I think one of the concerns, one of the things I read in the paragraphs that we said was there was concern about the numbers going to the Standing Building Committee and whether or not they are, not vetted out, but whether they've been accurate to the building committee. And I think that they have been, for the most part. That's why we have an AE, Architecture Engineering Services line in the bond resolutions when we go forward to be able to get good numbers. I think this particular project, though, at 595 regarding the Board of Ed offices needs a little bit more scrutiny. And one of the things I heard, and when I say scrutiny, that's probably the wrong word, a little bit more understanding, because, for example, one of the things I heard, and it makes sense until if you have all these change orders, and this is, by the way, typical for projects that I work on, when you have a number of change orders, you don't really know what goes behind those decisions and why there's a change order. On the HVAC, there was something about being undersized. I think some of us brought that up. Jonathan, might have been you, Jeff. The issue ended up being a programming issue, from what I understand, that the space was programmed a certain way based on the timing of the use of the weight room and the Board of Ed offices. That programming scope changed, which then led that school sports were using that facility, the weight room, on hours actually even during the school hours, which were taxing the system more, which then made it undersized. But it was a scope change, it was a program change. The architect and the engineering team didn't know that at the time. So there's certain things that were programmatically changed that until you get into it and you see how the thing's scheduled, and that's just one example of many regarding changes that have been coming forward. But I think it would be good to hear, this is typically what we do with an owner. You go through, and if there's 10 change orders, what's the change order? What's the change, and why it happened, and, what the amount is and why it was approved the way it was approved. I think it would just be good to hear that from the unique perspective of, this particular project, not necessarily all of them. Go ahead.
I completely agree with you, and it would be helpful to the Board of Selectmen. There have not been too many challenges to the structural stuff that gets changed.
Right.
What precipitated most of this was, unfortunately, the expenditures for furniture, which one of our board members pointed out, some extravagant number for a couple of pieces of furniture. And that's what drove most of this. But the consistent theme is, as you just pointed out very well, these projects have change orders that come along all the time. And the question is, why weren't more of them considered or contemplated by the engineering organizations that we hire to build the specs out? All right, and Charles Haverda is probably the leading member of our board that talks about this. Why can't we get better information at the front end so we don't have so many of these change orders and gotchas as they come through the system? Now, that being said, we have contingencies in all of our projects, right? But the expectation is you shouldn't need to use contingencies if you have a good engineering team and firm saying this is what the project is going to take. So that's largely what it was on a macro level. But what precipitated my comments the last time was specifically around the furniture allocation. And quite honestly, don't bring furniture to the Standing Building Committee. That doesn't add any gravitas to the approval process. That's not what they do. And that's been used in the past. Oh, the Standing Building Committee approves our furniture list. That's
Yeah.
probably not a good use of our Standing Building Committee.
Yeah, and those are, FF&E and furniture is usually considered soft cost,
Right.
meaning that it's kind of outside the construction of the project itself. That's where the Standing Building Committee is, I mean, that's where your big numbers are. Not saying that furniture can't be big numbers, as we also know. It can be, right? But at the same time, sometimes changes are made that we don't know the background behind them, whether it's programming or unforeseen condition. I can't answer the security one, and nor did David
So
on the
that's the other
phone.
one. Thank you for that. The security,
So-
nobody has an issue with spending money on security.
No, but why, but again, the
Why wasn't
natural
it
question came up
precipitated?
last month. Why was security not part of the project initially?
Exactly.
So now I look over to Linda, and Linda raised her hand. So Linda, what do you got?
So it's my understanding that the security was not included in the original specs because we wanted to keep the same system that is in the schools. And if we bid it out, we wouldn't necessarily get the same vendor. So it was kept separate so that we can remain consistent through all buildings in the district, have the same security system overseen and operated by the same company.
Right. So that's another example of, you know, you could
More to the
read,
story.
you could read, why is this costing us more money, more money, more money? At the same time, there's decisions that were made that we're not privy to. David said something to the effect of, well, maybe the Board of Finance needs to look at, you know, the numbers. I said, no, that is not the purview of the Board of Finance.
Your job.
The purview of the Board of Finance is to make sure the expenditures are being done appropriately, but we have to have a level of trust, and the accountability's got to go through the Standing Building Committee, which we have, for the most part. I don't think any of us have an issue with the Standing Building Committee. It's this particular project that has been a little bit more on the, you know, it's been changing and migrating over a little bit of time, and I think that we need to know. And by the way, this was a science classroom building that has been completely repurposed, and there's going to be things that come up that you don't see ahead of time. So I think just having a meeting to straighten all that out would be a good thing.
We'd be happy to have that conversation.
And so I'm letting you all know that I'm going to start that process. I'll probably start that directly with Cliff and let Cliff get the boards, unless there's somebody else that should plan it. It doesn't matter whether it's, I don't know who wants to own it. I'll own it. I have no problem owning it.
I'd be happy
But
to
then
have.
having a Zoom
I'd-
meeting and having us all a part of that.
I'd be happy to have Karen Corsha pull that
If Karen
together
could do
for you.
that with those people, the individuals, and then invite the
Because
three
we have
boards.
the staff to do that, so we're fine.
Great, I appreciate it.
We'll take that.
I appreciate it.
Chairman, I like to
Yeah,
appreciate
please.
this idea. I mean, obviously, when the project first came along, I think it was around 900 and change, or close to $1 million. I even thought it was kind of steep already. And then the furniture request came, I think that was in excess of $300,000. And then I'm trying to remember, and this is a good reason to have a meeting to sort of like review what happened and why the cost went up. But I think that the construction costs were underestimated.
Well,
And
construction costs also
that was
changed.
another.
There was also a huge amount of escalation of like something like 20 to 25% because of not just COVID,
Yeah.
but then just literally escalation in the
Supply
last
chain.
couple of years in construction
And then I
costs.
think the security.
To have that
connection,
history-
the Showers, I think, or something that was added or something.
I think we could have Cliff
Something didn't go
provide
right
that.
with the showers. So I'm interested, and I gotta say, I think this project may have doubled
It could
in
have.
cost from its original
It went up a
estimate.
lot more than I think any of us expected, and it needs to have a little bit more explanation behind it. So I wanted to address that. I know that was lengthy, but I wanted to bring it up because that was the big issue that came up last month. If there's anything else on the Standing Building Committee, certainly bring it up, but I wanted to make sure I addressed that.
Can I just ask, so what entity would oversee the furniture and fixture piece of a project like that? Would that be the Board of Ed?
That's Board of Ed.
Yeah, that's where the bond appropriation came through Board of Ed. Okay, is there anything else on standing building from April 1st? I'm sure we'll go over May next month. And I will make sure that, well, Karen will do it, but I'll make sure you're all included in that. Great. Great. Thank you, appreciate that. 3.2, Pension Committee minutes. Anything on Pension Committee? Minutes or investment report?
What a ride, what a ride.
and 3.3 OPEB. Okay. We will move on to item number 4. That would be review and accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for April 2025. Linda Judeau. A.B. Fenellosa. I even tried to do a little Fenellosa. Amy, I believe this is your first time presenting to our
Yes,
board?
it is.
Well, congratulations. That means we have to initiate you tonight.
All right.
Yeah.
Great,
We're going to
right?
bring all
I
kinds of
have
questions.
Linda here first.
Yeah.
You
Well-
should keep it under 100 questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tally. Linda will keep track.
Oh, welcome, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So for the month of April 2025, our expenditures were $5,273,710.27. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of April were 77.42% of the budget, compared with 78.57% last year. Revenue was $657,070.37. We received $634,664 for excess cost grant. The remaining $22,406 was from the Open Choice Program, Medicaid, tuition from Clinton, pre-K tuition, and non-resident tuition. If we break it down, our salaries percentage of the budget expended was in line with last year. Employee benefits was slightly higher than the prior year. We know that the budget has changed, so that accounts for some of that. Purchased services, the percentage of the budget was lower than the prior year. And we are still reviewing encumbrances for purchase services. We did note that electricity is higher than was anticipated, and safety, sanitation, and grounds were higher than the prior year. But we know electricity is going to have an effect on May 5th. Is that right, for the public benefit?
May 1st,
May 1st.
it was supposed to change. There was going to be a decrease of between 7 and 9% on the public benefit charge, so.
So we're waiting to see
A little bit
that.
of a decrease is,
Anything else?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Feel
Yes,
it,
very
right?
welcomed.
Tuition, the percentage of the budget was lower than the prior year, and we did receive an excess cost grant for tuition that has been recorded there. Supplies and material, the percentage of the budget is lower than the prior year. We do still see that our custodial expenses are high, and we are looking at that for next year to think about other options. Capital, percentage of the budget was lower than the prior year. Transportation was also lower. We received $138,769 for the excess cost grant that has been recorded in special transportation. And the warrant that we are submitting has been listed with the total payment detail at $2,117,596.64. So I'd be happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you.
For custodians being higher, is that staff or materials or both?
That's the materials.
Okay,
That's just the cleaning supplies.
okay.
We do bid some of it out, but there's some very specific products that we have to use, or only certain ones that we can use, and those costs have really gone up, so we're looking at alternatives.
It's always been a tough category.
Yes.
Well, there's a limit to the types of cleaning products that you can purchase.
Right.
In a school that you could use
Right.
in other facilities.
Yeah, and even outside on the grounds, there's limits to what we can use. So we're kind of restricted in options.
I was curious about the safety monitors. Did we run out of the grants for them earlier than expected, or
No.
seem to be spending more than we budgeted on?
So with the shift of the structure of the safety monitors and the school monitors, we removed some positions from lunchroom aides. So if you look at the lunchroom aide line, that's under budget. And so part of those salaries are offsetting the safety monitors and school monitors.
Okay, so shifting around.
Yes,
Okay.
just the two salary lines.
I had the same
are-
question. I was like, okay, I understand there was no budget last
Right.
year, but why was it trending to 127?
Because we restructured the positions and took 4 of the recess lunchroom aide positions and made them into the school monitors. And we did get some ARPA money but that had to be only through the salaries for December.
Right.
Through December, so. in next year's budget, it's all straightened out, so it won't be between the two accounts.
Right. Travel due, under purchase services, travel and dues and fees.
Dues and fees, we will get back part of that at the end of the year from the IB program.
Right.
We have to pay the fees up front and then get reimbursed. Travel, we've had a couple, there's a lot more out of district in-person professional development happening. We're getting away from the Zoom professional development that we've been doing the last 3 or 4 years. And then we have a number of staff members that are moving between buildings, and they're all submitting for mileage, the price of gas. Don't blame them.
Okay.
So it's a combination of,
It was over at this time last year also, but
Yes.
it's just more this year. And then I looked at the budget and I'm like, oh, it didn't really change, so it's not a budget issue.
right.
Okay. On the flip side, security. Is it 11%? Did I get am I seeing that right? 11% versus,
Right. So last year, we had to replace a lot of cameras for one of the security enhancements that was implemented. Did not work with some of our cameras because they were older. So we had to replace a lot of the cameras. So that's why it was so high last year. And this year, because we pushed so many into last year, we're not replacing as many cameras this year.
right. And I didn't expect any detail, obviously, because it's security, but it just means everything's working really well.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
Yeah.
we'll go with that.
I like
Yes,
it.
Okay, good.
yes.
How did we do on the cost grant? Did you get anywhere near what you expected, or I'm not even sure how it compared to last year?
So we're getting more funds at the end of June. That should bring it back up to about where I expected it to be. I was originally expecting 181,000. That's what I was originally told was going to be the additional amount. What I just saw the other day, we're down a couple $1,000s. We're getting $179,000 additional. So, but that should bring us back up to what I had budgeted for.
Okay, I was curious
This
about
is on
that.
top of the 636. Okay.
And we also have another small payment coming in at the end of this month. The way they pay it, they give us 75% in the first payment and 25% in the last. So we have a small little payment coming in the end of May, and then in June, we'll get the 179,000.
So there's a few budget items that we're not doing that well on, and electricity and medical are going to be probably pretty big hits. Is there some positive lines on the budget that are going to counter those
Tuition.
budget lines?
Yeah.
Tuition.
Tuition's a big one.
So medical is not, there's going to be some large credits that are going to be applied to our medical because
saw
of the
that.
way we do our, we pay our employees with a balloon check at the end of June.
Oh, I saw
They
something
get-
else, sorry.
They get 4 months, they have 4 months, 4 paychecks in June with all their medical deducted out of it. So we get large credits going in to the medicals. I don't think medical is going to be an issue, at least not a huge issue. Electricity, we know, is an issue. Tuition's going to be very favorable. It's, part of tuition, though, will offset a projected over expenditure in special services. Those are the contracted services for special ed students. So when we brought the kids back,
It's a reallocation. basically.
reallocation. There are some good news, and actually, right now, I had told this to the Board of Ed at their meeting last week, that right now I'm projecting, it's in here somewhere, between $100,000 and $150,000 of unexpended funds at the end of the year.
Okay.
So right now, we're looking in pretty good shape, even with these accounts that are over.
That's across all categories.
Yes.
That was good.
It's only May, so that can change by
Yeah.
by
Of
the end of
course.
July, but that's right now is what my projection is.
The closer we get to the end of the year, the closer that becomes a real figure, so. Okay.
I
That's
wasn't
great.
sure, I think you might get some credits from stop loss when we get payouts for stop loss.
That goes into the medical to the medical fund, it doesn't come directly into the
Okay.
Board of Ed budget or the town budget.
Okay,
It
I
goes
was
into the
wondering if that
medical.
would affect you.
No, it goes into the
Only the
medical.
town budget? Gotcha.
No, it's not the town budget, it's just into the medical fund.
Okay.
So it's just the medical fund that you get the report on from Mary Jane, and that's a combined town and Board of Ed fund.
But it's a town run.
It's town run.
Board of Ed pays into it.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to see it on your line item, though?
No, no.
She tries.
I try. Hey, you can't blame me for trying.
I know we increased the amount in the budget for substitute teachers, and it's still running a little above where it is as a percentage of the year. How's it looking? I mean, beyond what I just said.
It's, let me find what I'm looking for. In my projection, I have it going over a little bit, but not anywhere near what it had gone over last year.
Right. But we increased the line items for.
And it's still, we have had a number of long-term absences of teachers. We've had a lot of absences in general. I think we talked about it more in the winter. Teachers were tired. So we've used a lot of substitutes. And we did raise the rate that we were paying in order to try and attract substitutes.
And did that work? Did it help, I should say?
It helped a little bit.
Yeah.
It helped a little bit. There's still days when, and
Yeah.
last Friday was a day when there were a lot of absences. And there was some juggling to try and cover.
What do you attribute that to?
Mental health.
Spring fever.
Well, there's also, I mean, in the corporate world anyway, people have personal days and it's use it or lose it. So there's that piece too. I mean, nobody's going to leave 2 or 3 days of personal time on the table. They're going to take it. That's just human nature.
And it's usually, if they haven't used it already, it's usually, coming this time of year.
Yeah.
When the weather starts getting a little bit nicer, when
Yeah.
there's a lot more activities going on, that's when we see people using them more.
Has there been an impact with the Family Medical Leave Act in terms of administrative work that that wouldn't show up necessarily on the substitute line, but that there's added cost that's on your side of the ledger?
It hasn't been a huge impact. There have been some people who have used it and, taken their hour increment, time off. I haven't been tracking it. Somebody else is, so I haven't seen really how much it's been used, but I know it has been used.
It's usually
Did you- Megan, did you want-
maternity leave, though, isn't
It's
it?
actually, so certain unions wrote themselves out of the law. So it depends on if you're in a certain union or not, if you're eligible. So there's certain and I don't know which ones are in it or not, but I know for the Connecticut paid leave law, there's certain unions that wrote themselves out of it so that they don't use it because they have their own benefits.
Because they're not paying into
Because they're not paying into it, if that makes sense.
You had to prove, you had to prove you
But
had your
this-
own.
Yeah.
No.
Were you asking about that one or the?
No, it's
The short term? The other one where they can, the full FMLA, all right. Because there's too many that are very similar. 'Cause there's also
the federal
one-
FMLA, like okay, sorry.
Yeah, we've had a number of people out on FMLA. I thought you were referring to the one where people can take up to their first 40 hours of sick time in 1 hour increments,
No.
which puts a whole struggle on us of how you cover.
That's the paid sick days law.
That's the paid sick days law.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got confused about which one you were talking about.
I'm learning on this subject as we're
Yes.
having this discussion.
It's just like Mr. Beatty to throw in, a really complicated section.
There's no,
I should let Amy handle that.
there's no minimum.
Welcome, Amy.
Thanks. I'll take it.
There's no minimum attendance requirement, is there? Before it affects compensation.
It's how, I only know this because I have to do that. It's how you structure your PTO.
Yeah.
So it's all in how you structure it. So
Well, do we have that in Guilford?
I don't know what Guilford has, but I know,
No, I mean, there are regulations about when you can and can't take time off. And if they see a pattern with somebody, they will try and address it. I don't think there's anything that allows us to affect compensation.
Okay.
I mean, there have been people who unfortunately have used up all their sick days and have been forced to take unpaid time, but that's usually under, some circumstance that's.
Didn't occur to me till this conversation.
yeah.
On the capital equipment line, I think we get some credits back,
Yes,
so that might balance out a little bit.
that will come back closer to in line. We're still waiting for Department of Motor Vehicle to send us back the title for the truck, and once we get that, we can get reimbursed for the truck. So that's almost $80,000, and then there's some other equipment we still have to submit for. We were hoping to do it all at once and put in one request, but if the truck title doesn't come soon, we'll probably put in for the equipment and get that back.
I'm actually waiting for my title from the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles. Timing them.
Anything else on the financial reports or minutes? One thing we don't usually bring up is dining services.
Yes.
And I was just curious because, it said for last month, it said the month ended with it was almost a $10,000 loss, but there was equipment that was purchased, and I'm just wondering how we're doing in general on dining services.
She did mention the equipment purchase as something that we were working to offset with the sales of lunches. It's my understanding that breakfast has gone down since COVID when it was no cost for the students, so we aren't having a lot of breakfast sales. Lunches seem to be going up a little bit, and we're looking at possible price increases in the coming year, so we're looking at that to balance it.
So at the end of April, year-to-date, they were operating at a loss of $25,060.86. But over the last few years, when we've gotten additional funding for free meals for everybody or free breakfast, we've built up some cash surplus. And the regulation is with the dining services that you can't have more than 3 months of operating expenses in your cash balance. So we had to come up with a spending plan. So we used that opportunity to replace some very old equipment that we've had in the schools.
So that's what there are funds remaining that must be spent this year, it comes in.
Yes,
in the
so
balance, yeah.
we are working on spending down this excess funds,
Got it.
which is part of the reason why they're purchasing the vehicle. The vehicle that they're using now is a former police vehicle. So they need something that's going to run a little bit better than that. So that's part of the spending
reliable.
plan. Yeah, part of the spending plan to use up the excess funds that we need to in, appropriate manner.
Anything further? I just want to note real quick in the workshop minutes, Kevin Buno, who's the Baldwin principal,
Yes.
my kids loved him. And the fact that he left and came back, I read that and I was like, that is awesome. That is really great.
Wonderful.
So really good news. I usually we don't call out people by names, but I know my kids were big fans of him, of his. So it was nice to see him return to Guilford.
Yeah.
There was so much positive
It
sentiment
sounded-
at the meeting
yeah.
when he was announced, so
Yeah.
we're really happy. It's exciting.
Oh, fantastic.
Great.
I just want to note, the tuition report that I sent out to you does not reflect that additional $179,000 that we are getting. I was really holding off until we got something a little bit more concrete, that we were going to be getting it, what the actual amount is. So it's not on there. I will probably add it for the next meeting. So
Great.
that makes the balance of tuition even better.
Even better, yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Sure.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Linda.
Take care. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures in April 2025 for the Board of Education in the amount of $5,273,710.27.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Excellent. Item number 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for Town of Guilford. government for April 2025, just to be exact. Mary Jane. Good evening.
Let's start with revenues at the end of April, 83% through our year. We have a few of our departments that are really helping our revenue stream. Planning and zoning, the golf course, fire, and youth and family services are doing very well. Unfortunately for the citizens, when the fire and youth and family services is doing well, it means we have more services to our taxpayers, but it's doing that. Golf course, doing very well. Again, this year, got some good weather, got a little bit rainy, but they're doing pretty well. Couple items that are a little low. The building department is a little low. It's really just based on the number of permits that are coming through the office, a little lower than anticipated.
It's not been a good weather year
For construction, right.
for optional construction.
And under other departmental, majority of that, 397,000, will not be coming in. That's a grant I've been talking about that we're not getting this year, and we did not budget for next year. Overall, we're 99% received already. I do anticipate a surplus at the end of the year, not quite as large as we've seen in other years, but we are tracking a surplus at this point. On the
The
revenue side.
building permitting process, when we went online, how is that going? Is it going well?
Yeah, we've had relatively unanimous support from the
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Matt.
We've had relatively unanimous support from the contractors on how we introduced it and what kind of service we wrapped around, giving them education on how to use the system, et cetera. Dark Lingren did an absolutely amazing job of managing this process. There are going to be some challenges. This is a data conversion that's pretty significant. And in my previous life, I did a lot of those kind of things, and they never went according to plan. But there have not been any major hiccups on this at this point. So, the interesting part is I now have access, viewing level access into the permitting process. So I don't have to pick up the phone any longer and call over there and say, hey, where's this permit? So, and because there are so many folks who call my office and said, it's been a long time since I've heard from anybody over there, where is it, et cetera. So there will be challenges over time, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
Oh, that's good news, good.
And the biggest part of it is it creates an electronic workflow process that didn't exist over there because it was take a file, and move it to the five different entities in that building. And that is rife with the opportunities for something to fall through the cracks.
Great, thank you.
And now if it's sitting in somebody's inbox, they keep getting reminded to do something about it instead of a physical form that has 12 things piled on top of it.
And it also has time-sensitive parameters. So if somebody doesn't deal with something in a certain amount of time, it gets flagged, and they get some of us will get word of it.
Yeah. So there's accountability.
Then they go to the first selectman's office.
Well, or the principal's office, as we call it.
I'm trying never to make that happen.
Yeah, you don't want to be on that list.
Mary Jane, I was curious, how is the fire department doing so well?
It's it's the number of calls, the increase in calls for the ambulance.
Charges for
Yep.
ambulance?
That's what I said when you
Bad
see-
news, good news.
That's right. Good news is bad news, because that means it's more people needing to go out.
But it drives up replacement salaries and overtime.
Correct, yep. So when you see the increase in revenue on the fire department side, it corresponds, as I say, each month to the increase in expenditures, because as our ambulances need to go out, we have to bring others in, we have replacements, we have overtime.
We have equipment repairs, all that kind of stuff.
And the cost of replacing the supplies within the ambulance, the costs have really skyrocketed.
Narco cans?
Yeah, all of that, whatever they need to use. Every time the ambulance goes out, supplies are needed to be replaced, so You see that in the expense detail.
Now, will you send out a memo and tell the other departments you expect the same percentage revenue as the selectman's office? That go out this week?
Yes,
Did you guys sell something again?
yeah, those are all,
Those are all the auctions.
yeah.
Fire engines.
What
No,
did you sell?
Haven't sold the
Curious.
fire engine yet. I would have had to bring it to
Let
the
me know.
It's any type of equipment that we have. It could be a computer, it could be a vehicle, it could be a lawnmower, desks. I mean, anything. We in government, we're really not allowed to just give things away or throw them, So this online auction allows us to put everything out to bid, even if we don't think it has a lot of value. We make $50, we make $50.
Sort of like neighborhood tax sales. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Hey,
That's
why
right.
not?
But maybe we should have a different, or add a line item for that, so it doesn't skew the selectman's office per se. I mean, are we at that point that it's worth
When we-
doing, or,
Well, this is a lot of small stuff. When we have a large item through the selectman's office, say we're going to replace a dump truck, and we're gonna put one off for surplus, the selectmen have made it part of their motion that
Can offset it.
funding offsets the expense.
That makes way too much sense.
Yeah.
We do that for larger
Right.
items or where it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But you're right, we could certainly
I mean,
make
I
a
don't know if
line
we're
for
at
that.
that point. I'm
We
just
haven't
thinking-
budgeted for it yet because
Yeah.
we think, every year we think it's an anomaly. But yes, certainly something to talk about
about.
next time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, I thought you were going to talk about that it's not nearly as high as it was last year.
That's a little different.
Yeah, that's, you've got to work harder at that. The fire truck, go, here we go. Anything else on revenue? Okay, expenses.
All right, so on the expense side, as we were speaking, the golf course and the fire department are slightly over where they should be at this point, an absolute corresponding to their revenue. The health department is high. We do have grants that come in to offset a lot of the salaries. We have been working with Sonia and the state health department to determine which grants we are still receiving and which grants are still in flux. But we do hope that at least we'll get enough in to make that budget whole. Capital is the only budget we're over right now. As I talk about each month, those are items that we have determined to be spent from fund balance. So when we go through the 5-year capital plan, we do take some of those items and we use the set-asides and fund balance to cover those so we don't have to tax the people for that. So at the end of the year, we will make that whole. Otherwise, overall, doing fairly well at this point, running a little bit lower than the 83%. So I do hopeful that we will have a surplus again. On the expenditure side, we typically don't have large surplus each year. So I would expect to have a surplus again, but again, not as large.
Mostly coming from revenue.
Linda's given me 150,000, so that's good. I know. I know.
Anything else? Expenses, questions? Warrants. Yeah, I can't say I have any. And then, dreaded medical.
The medical.
Go ahead.
So as I say every month, claims are still running high. Claims are
There's always a positive.
Yeah. claims are still running high. April was indeed lower than the prior month, one of the lower months. That does include catastrophic claims. At the bottom, I do have $686,000 still anticipated to be reimbursed. So I've put that back into the fund balance. You'll note that under catastrophic claims at the top, we already have over 30 people that have reached the $75,000 mark, and a number that are already over that 150, 14 people. We're at 118% of our catastrophic claims. Again, I'll say that number is good for us. It just means the health of our employees is causing that.
But the good
So-
for us means it's good right now this year, but then when they look at the numbers, they're gonna adjust the
Oh, yeah.
numbers to pop them up.
Right.
Because
Claim history.
we did well.
We did well, yes, and we saved we've saved a lot of money in stop loss costs over the last few years. So that one thing that I neglected to mention at the selectmen's meeting this morning is we still have those RX rebates. If you remember, once I talked to you, we had budgeted $900,000 in rebates to come back into our medical fund. We were told by our consultant that we should still expect those, but they may not come in until next year. So that's another almost $1 million added into that fund. But I don't know when it's coming. It could be next June. I don't know. Although we are expecting it. It's just going to be a lag for that. So the numbers I have, I have $2.3 million in the estimated fund balance. If that comes in, it's closer to $3 million. But at the moment, we're less than 2 months, and we have 2 months to go. Obviously, after July 1, the money that we put into the fund better reflects the claims that we are seeing. I will note so that when you see it, the town's portion will be less than what we are currently putting in this year. But that is because we've moved the firemen to a new, the IAFF, and this in fiscal '25, we continue to pay that out of the medical fund because that is where we budgeted it. Starting July 1, it's in the regular, employee benefits budget in the general fund, so all of that cost moves to the general fund. So that's why the town's contribution to the medical fund is going up for the rest of those employees, but it looks like it's coming down because we've moved, that large group out.
So that'll show up in the monthly report for the fire department as a line item?
No, it's in the employee benefits.
Oh, it won't be in
Right.
employee benefits?
No,
Okay.
Right, it's not going to be.
It's not fire departments, it's fire department specific in the sense that it's their health plan as opposed to
Correct, but
everyone
it's in the
else's.
employee benefits, in the
Okay.
same way the Teamsters
I
is
see.
budgeted in our employee benefits, but you do not see it in the medical fund. The medical fund is purely for the self-funded employees. So it's kind of commingled this year, but, July 1, it will be separating that out.
And
So-
those
IAF.
IIF premiums have worked out to be a better deal for the town than if we kept them on our plan?
It's similar.
similar?
I think it was a little better deal for the employees. I think
Okay.
it's
Well,
not too much of a
Tip of the
difference.
hat if we got more
Yeah,
benefit
it'll
out of it.
just,
Yeah.
we'll see what their renewal is.
Nice job on the recommendation.
When we did the evaluation
Of the efficacy of moving to that plan, it actually saved us money based on the projections we were utilizing at the time.
Right.
I suspect those are probably it's also the case because of the experience that we've had over the last year. I'm sure that there is a firefighter or two or a family member amongst the firefighters who are experiencing the same level of claim severity that we have said. We don't know specifically where those claims are coming from, but I'm going to assume that it was consistent. So that was one of the reasons, one of the considerations for moving to that is that it's a fixed cost. It's not experiential based. And yes, it is eventually experiential based because that's the way insurance companies do
increase
it.
the
But
cost, right.
we would not be responsible for bearing the full cost of it.
And the other benefit was, remember, there was insurance for retirees until they hit the eligible age for Medicare.
Which is hopefully to attract.
That was the whole point,
environment to the town.
right, because they were losing people to other towns that had better
Definitely tip of the hat.
As you may recall, we then offered benefits coverage from 55 to 65 as part of that move. So.
Next month's going to be better.
Sure.
Optimism, yes.
Last year's.
It was colored glasses.
Yeah, right, just don't look at last week.
Well, I mean,
I guarantee I'm going to give you the number,
Right.
whatever it is, but
people hit their deductibles and it's going to reset.
right on top of that, yeah. We hit that the second half of the year as well, so.
So people are making claims to get it in under the wire.
Correct, yep. May and June could be even higher.
Anything further for the town government? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures in April 2025 for town government in the amount of $2,144,490.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Thank you. Item number 6. Let's see here. Oops. Receive and take action on the tax collector's recommendation of uncollectibles to be transferred to the suspense list. We have received suspense reports for motor vehicle, personal property, and supplemental motor vehicle. All those PDFs are part of our packet. I'm sure we glanced at those as well as there's a tax collector suspense menu. Suspense memo, geez, read much? That was dated May 12th. So the personal property amount, this is coming off of Grand List 2021, about 24,000 motor vehicles, about 30, just close to 35,000 motor vehicles. Supplemental is 10,700.
I think the motor vehicle's 54,000, yeah, closer to 55.
Did I say, what did I say, 34?
34.
That's because I can't see through my glasses
It's because
correctly.
fives look like threes.
If I zoomed in, oh, look at that, it's 54,772.
One more knock on Diligent.
Right. I do have a question, and I know this comes up every single year, and I know that just because they're on suspense list doesn't mean that they're not collectible. But I did look at the list. I mean, I'm sure we all look at the list because
Look at my name.
honestly, you look for your name and then you're like, oh, okay, is there anyone I know? And I have to admit, there's a few people, I don't have close contact with them, but I know the names. I don't know where they necessarily are now, but how does that work? I mean, go, please.
So putting them on a suspense list just means they've met the criteria
Right.
to get on that list. It doesn't mean we ever stop trying to collect those taxes. And I'll just, in the revenue, on the revenue reports from this month, we've already brought in $47,000 in suspense collections this year. So we are always trying to get them. If there's any name on that list and you know where they live, you can place a call to the tax collector.
And be, I don't know if I want to be a snitch, but.
Right. And I think as most of you may recall from looking at budget documents, we have a revenue line item for prior year's taxes. These are excluded from prior year's taxes.
Right, that's a separate line item for suspense.
That's right.
Yep.
Is it helpful to know people who have died on this list, or is that something that the tax collector's office checks? Because unfortunately, there are a number that I recognize that have
I'm not sure they
Yeah.
do a check for that,
Okay.
but any information you have, you can certainly call and let them know.
Okay.
obviously,
Yeah.
anything would be helpful. I'm not sure how
Most of that would
works.
probably wind up going through probate.
Right, yeah, I just don't, you know, you're sending
And
something
then
to an
the
address
estate is still
that's
responsible.
that's not going,
Right.
or is it, you know about it and it's just in that bucket that it has to wait, so.
Would these line items generate like a tax lien? Or is there a certain amount
Oh, yes,
threshold?
there will be penalties. Interest is accrued to it. It doesn't stop because you're on suspense.
I don't believe we put a lien on vehicles, though.
Not liens,
So,
but it's-
So the cars will not
Only real
be
property.
liened, just real estate.
Yeah, but the cars won't be able to be registered.
You can't
Right.
register another vehicle
So
in
the car,
in
you
Connecticut,
know-
correct?
So you'd
Drives it to
have
the
to
ground.
address it at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if like. there
Yeah,
were
because it's
things like-
linked now. You know, years ago, we always fought to have that linked, and it is now.
I noticed a lot of amounts for below $10.
Yeah, these are not big amounts, by the way. I just want to make sure that's clear, but they're always, yeah, they're always, they remain collectible, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. With that, so we need to put that in the form of a motion, so. That's the wrong motion, though. We don't want that one yet. So I'm going to entertain a motion to transfer to the suspense list for the 2023 grand list, $89,456.48 as recommended by the tax collector in the memo dated May 12th of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Item number 7, discuss and take possible action on amending the cap for, sorry, these windows in Diligent, I'm trying to migrate here. Possible action on amending the cap for the aggregate benefit of the elderly tax relief program. Mary Jane, why don't you summarize that and then?
So after putting in all the data, we are at $1,152,617. So we've gone over the cap by about $53,000. I would recommend that we just bring the cap up to 1.2 at this point. So I'd just like to note there are mainly 3 reasons for the increase this year. We have more people that have signed up for the program, and we have less fall-offs. And that's mainly due to the automatic 1-year approval if you go over income. So the people that go over income their first year would normally fall off. This first year they stay on. So there's a lower amount of people that has happened
Which
to.
is based on the new policy.
The
That was
new ordinance,
established.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And the final reason is that we've had less people fail to reapply. So every year we get people that just don't reapply, they forget to reapply, they don't want to reapply for whatever. But so I think last year we had close to 40 and we had less than half of that this year. So brought all the numbers up. Those are the 3 main reasons. So again, I'd recommend just, making it $1.2 million.
I'd like to commend the assessor's office for their attention, care, and duty to this. They're actually reaching out to people to remind them to reapply, which is quite a dangerous thing. If they forgot to reapply, they'd fall out, or they get 1 year's grace, but it's, they know who's who, and they know people individually. I think it's a great service they provide to the town.
And this board may recall, I was going back through history, because was this last year? It was 2 years ago that we needed to raise the cap. Again, we had just gone over a little bit, so we raised it $100,000. We're basically going to do that. It's being recommended to do it again.
I have this many pages of people. We would have to allocate that 52,000 over, 13 pages worth of people. So it wouldn't be a big number to them, but it.
Just as a slight recap, we didn't really know on the committee. We raised the income level by 5%. We had no way of knowing. We knew how many people in town were over 65. We knew tons and tons of data. We just didn't know that what the people we didn't know were making. So by raising the income level by 5%, we didn't know if it would cost us $100,000 more, which we kind of hoped for. But the other rules that Mary Jane just pointed out about the one-time get-out-of-jail card, et cetera, is shown
Right.
up in the data.
And we're only short $50,000. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you
pretty
know,
close.
If it was $2 million, then we'd go, ooh, what did I?
Yeah.
You know, but.
Yeah, it's
But
not
we
that
do
big.
want to increase the cap instead of allocating pennies to
Yeah.
everyone, so.
And we've done it before, and we have to do, we should do it. We don't have to, but we should do it.
Right, it's the right thing to do.
It's a good view, it's
Yeah.
a tested view.
Yeah. Okay.
I make a motion that we amend the cap for the aggregate benefit of the elderly tax relief program to 1.2 million.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Jonathan? Gotcha. Let me guess.
Love the program.
Acid
Just
test.
want an acid test.
Acid test.
It's a great program.
I knew the answer to that one. Okay, thank you. Item number 8, committee reports, building permits. If nothing on that. Item number 9, old business. I don't believe I have any old business. Anybody? And item number 10, new business. Yes, I do have an item of new business, and it's something that I think we all received, and it's more of a public service announcement. I wanted to make sure that people were aware of the Plan of Conservation and Development Community Workshop on May 22nd at 6:30 at the Community Center. This is the workshop, a workshop, and the first public meeting to develop an update to the town's Plan of Conservation Development. Some members of this board, I believe myself, Jeff, and Bob were able to attend the first kickoff meeting with all the boards and commissions. So this is a public continuation. I did want to mention that the information is all at the Planning and Zoning webpage. If anyone's interested in finding out more about it, there's an internet-based survey available. And again, this is the first of what will be 4 in-person workshops. The first 2 workshops are really more introduction and gathering information, and the second set we'll be discussing the potential vision, guiding principles, and goals. So just want to make sure everyone knew about that. Again, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Community Center on May 22nd, so that's Thursday.
And just to add to that, so the Plan of Conservation Development is a statutory requirement that the town has to undertake at least once every 10 years. And it becomes, as you can kind of guess from the name of the document, the guiding fact, one of the guiding principles or documents when the Planning and Zoning Commission considers particularly applications for special exceptions, because one of the requirements that the applicants have to satisfy in order to get their application approved is that what they are proposing is meeting the goals or helping to meet the goals of the Plan of Conservation and Development. So it's a substantial undertaking by the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and public input is very crucial to them making a decision and coming up with a plan that really complies with how we want to see the town grow over the next 10 years. So attend if you can.
It's an opportunity. It's a really important opportunity.
Yeah, and if you can't make May 22nd, there is going to be another one at a later date. I don't believe they scheduled it yet. At least that's what the email said that I received. So go to Planning and Zoning, the webpage, and I'm sure the date will be put on there. Okay. Any further new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, dear.
Oh, wait a minute. I know.
Public forum.
Public forum, item number 11. Anybody wishing, no, I don't see any.
Yeah.
Okay, now I will entertain.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.